Nominations for the 2025 Canadian Radio Awards are now open, recognizing the voices, creators, and teams that make Canadian radio great. Visit CanadianRadioAwards.com and get your nominations in before the deadline on October 27th.
You know, if you mention my name now to someone in Vancouver or Halifax, Bill Welychka, they'll think, oh yeah, that guy was on MuchMusic, wasn't he? Yeah, I think he went to Much More Music. Where is he now? Is he dead? Whatever happened to that guy? So, out of sight, out of mind.
Bill Welychka is best known for his time at MuchMusic, but what you may not know is that after his 13 years with the channel, he chose to go into local news, culminating in spending more than a decade at CKWS-TV Kingston, where he was part of cutbacks at Corus Entertainment last year, and ultimately chose to walk away from media. Welychka has since published the second edition of his memoir, A Happy Has-Been, Exciting Times and Lessons Learned. He joins Broadcast Dialogue, the podcast, to talk about his media journey, the aftermath of major downsizing in the Kingston market, his love affair with the city, and what he's up to now.
Hey, this is Bill Welychka, and what an honor to have you listen to me. And I don't know if you'll enjoy it or not. I'm hoping by the end you will enjoy it. I started my career in broadcasting with MuchMusic. How lucky was I? Living in Toronto, first job in a major market on a national level. I graduated from Seneca's radio and television arts program. In the week I graduated, I got hired at Much as an editor, mostly overnight shifts, and fell in love with editing. I went to school with the desire to shoot, to be a camera person, but really fell in love with editing and then producing. My first year there, I was a big country fan at the time. I became a big country fan in college, and this would have been the first year of, would have been 86, I think, first year of college. Dwight Yoakam, Randy Travis, Steve Earle all put out their debut records, and I was so into alternative at the time that to me, country music was alternative. No one I knew listened to it, and would eventually go back and did my homework and found out about Waylon Jennings and George Jones and Johnny Cash and all these cats who I thought were really, really cool. And so when I was at Much, decided to submit a proposal for a country show. MuchMusic was playing rap and pop and alternative and all kinds of things. And I thought we had all these country music videos coming in, but really they weren't being played. And submitted a proposal. One ended up going on the air. I'm not saying it was my proposal, but I think John Martin, our director of music programming at the time, had an idea for a country show. Anyway, so I was editing that, eventually producing that, and eventually started hosting it when Denise Donlin left to go on mat leave. And the viewers responded, and when they canceled the country show, Denise asked me to move over to regular flow VJing for MuchMusic. This would have been around, country show I did was from on air from 92 to 94, and started VJing. Talk about being worried. I thought, is the audience going to believe this guy who was just interviewing George Strait and Johnny Cash? Are they going to believe him when I start interviewing the Stone Roses or any hip hop artists or whoever? And they did. They were okay with it. Great acceptance. And that was a big concern of mine, but that was a hump that I got over. But one of the things that I never, ever wanted to let go of was the editing and producing. So on air, VJing at MuchMusic, and producing and editing specials that I would spin out of my interviews. And I really love that whole idea of, go to New York, interview the Cranberries, come back with that Cranberries interview, and edit and produce a 1-hour special. To me, it was the best of both worlds because I got to do the interview and I got to edit and produce the resulting pieces. And by around 2000, I was realizing I really wanted to concentrate on interviews and not be Sporty Spice for MuchMusic Spice Girls Day. I had to dress up as Sporty Spice. But when we launched Much More Music, I asked to get moved over so I could just do interviews, just do specials. And it was doing that until 2005 when I thought, Okay, I had to justify my David Bowie interview being turned into an hour special. And by then, Denise Donlin had gone off to head up Sony Music Canada. Really missed her. And I thought, really, I'm being asked if David Bowie would warrant an hour special. So I thought, okay, I think I'm done with entertainment. Accepted an offer to go to Edmonton to co-host the morning show for the newly branded City TV. I did that for a year. Missed Ontario. Of course, my family is all from Ontario, and as much as I loved Edmonton, as much as I loved Alberta, I thought it was time to come back to Ontario. I took an offer to be a weather anchor at the A Channel in Ottawa, which has become since rebranded as CTV2. And was a weather anchor for our 6 o'clock news. And then when that got canceled, they moved some of us over to our morning show and did that until 13 years ago when Bell Media made a lot of cuts to the Ottawa operations, and then ended up in Kingston at CKWS-TV. It was a heritage station for hosting a 5 p.m. show, which I sort of, they said, change it, make it yours, alter it, and had this luxury to starting from the ground up a brand new 5 p.m. hour, and did that until programming changed on the Corus end. And then I ended up doing a morning show for CKWS TV. That was up until I want to say a year ago in July. So, July of 2024, they canceled our morning show. I got shifted to radio, and then they canceled our radio. There was a lot of fiscal restraints being put on Chorus properties. Kingston was a victim of major downsizing, just one of many markets. And a lot of us were we all were packaged out. And, after 35 years of broadcasting, uh, licking my wounds, I realized it was time maybe to leave broadcasting. And I love Eastern Ontario. I love Kingston. The idea was I didn't want to move to pursue another gig in broadcasting, whether it was TV or whether it was radio. So I did a total career change after several months of deep thoughts. Um, I accepted an offer from a friend of mine who is a manager at a car dealership in Gananoque, just east of Kingston. I live in the east end of Kingston, Gananoque, Chev. So for the past 9 months, 10 months, I've been selling Cadillacs and GM, Chevy products, Buick products. I've always looked at my career as somehow giving back to the community, supporting our community, elevating the community that I was in through broadcasting. It was always very important to me to do that. I think I found a new way of doing that with automotive sales. And that is one of the things that I said to the pitch when the manager approached me and said, "Have you ever thought about car sales?" I thought, well, no, I've never been in sales. And he goes, basically, you interview people for a living. That's what we want. Find out about their needs, their wants, their lifestyles, find a car that suits them. So I've been doing that since January of 2025. I've had some very good months. I still keep a toe in the broadcasting world with CKWS TV in terms of commercials and a weekly segment for Matt Lee, who is our real estate guru, and still do segments there. But when I look back at over 35 years of broadcasting, it's been very good to me. I got the chance to travel the world, interview every single person I've ever wanted to in terms of entertainment and athletes and royalty. And it all came out in a biography in 2023 called A Happy Has Been. And the second edition came out earlier this year in 2025. And through a lot of book signings and traveling for the book, I realized it warranted a second edition, and that came out earlier this year.
You're also doing some play by play announcing, aren't you?
Yeah, part of my love of Kingston was, I'm also a huge sports fan. So for almost 10 years, I was the in-house host for the Queen's Gales football team. And this year they said, "Bill, we love you, but we're doing it for we're going to let students do it." But I shifted to Queen's Gales men's hockey commentary for live games, both the women's team and the men's team. So, yeah, my relationship with Queens still exists. And again, one of the beautiful things about Kingston is, I've been interviewing the guys from the Tragically Hip since the mid 90s. moving to Kingston back in 2012, solidifying relationships with the guys. I think that has been one of my favorite things about this particular market. And for the book, yeah, Paul Langlois from the Hip wrote the book's forward, and how honored was I, completely honored and stoked to have him be a part of the book. And there's a whole chapter on the Tragically Hip in there and just what they meant to me and what they meant to Canadians and fans around the world. And of course, Gord Downey's undeniable print on pop culture here in Canada.
He gives you a very high compliment, maybe the highest you can receive as an interviewer, in that the band hated doing interviews, but
Yeah.
with you they felt like they were talking to a buddy. He calls you a revelation. Do you have any big takeaways from the dozens of interviews you've conducted about how to do it right, Bill?
I think when I was an editor, starting off as an editor, I would edit a lot of features for MuchMusic, and I saw what worked in interviews, and most importantly, what didn't work in terms of getting that all important soundbite. I had really good teachers looking back: Christopher Ward, Denise Donlin, Steve Anthony, Erica M., Michael Williams. When we weren't doing live 5-minute interviews, we were all off taping interviews. Could have been in Toronto, it could have been in LA or New York or anywhere around the world. And so spending many hours in an edit bay, seeing what didn't work, I think it was just by osmosis. I picked up little bits of positive sort of ways to conduct an interview. I've always believed an interview, it's the artist's time to shine. And I'm sure in a situation, they might be interviewed 10 times that day. And to always walk away with the goal, okay, this interview that I'm doing with this artist, I want it to be their favorite interview of the day. I want them to get a sense that they talked freely and openly and probably discussed things that they didn't discuss that day. Meanwhile, you're keeping in mind the fans are listening or watching. You have to satisfy them. I have to, of course, satisfy myself. You have to satisfy the artist. And one of the things that I remember coming away with a long, long, long time ago is I am there to cast a spotlight on the artist. I know some interviewers believe they're a star interviewing a star. I've always fought against that. I believe I'm simply the conduit between the audience and the artist and their messages and what the audience wants to hear, perhaps learn from. One of the biggest compliments that I heard when I was doing the book tour for the first book, which a lot of the comments made their way into the second edition, was my interview with The Cure made them become a lifelong fan, or my special with Oasis made them become a lifelong fan of that band. And that always blew me away, that people can see passion. They can get wrapped up in it. Music is entertainment, sure. That's what it's there for. But I learned a long time ago, music can also be a friend. It can be a companion on long journeys. It's there at funerals. It's there at weddings. It's there to learn from. It's there to raise money for charity. It's there for a lot more than just entertainment. And I've always maintained that. And I think the artist can sense that. And I think the audience can sense that too.
I think ego death is sort of a theme of your book. A happy has been. You've really embraced that idea.
I'm honest about it. It's funny because I started off in this major market on a national level and somehow eventually wound my way down to a smaller market, to a local audience. And that's not how you do it in broadcasting. You're supposed to start off on a smaller market, in a smaller market, and then hopefully work your way to a national level. I remember having a conversation with someone about this years ago, and they said, "Are you happy in a smaller market?" And I said, "The size of the audience doesn't matter. It's connecting with the audience that is available." And I've always believed that. I think I've always done that. But, if you mention my name now to someone in Vancouver or Halifax, Bill Welychka, they'll think, "Oh yeah, that guy was on MuchMusic, wasn't he? Yeah, I think he went to Much More Music. Where is he now? Is he dead? Whatever happened to that guy?" So out of sight, out of mind. Whereas Jen Arden once told me, "If you're not appearing, you're disappearing." I'm okay with that. And so there are people who have followed my career from day one as well, which continues to blow me away. And I don't consider them fans. I consider them viewers or followers. I'm a fan of Led Zeppelin. I'm a fan of The Cure. I could never put myself in a position of someone looking up to me and being a fan. It's just, I don't think what I did saved lives. I had a conversation with, every now and then I'll say, I had a conversation with Madonna about this. But it's true. We talked about this, and I talk about this in the book, in that as much as I love music and I have heroes in music, I think we forget that the true heroes are researchers, our doctors, our first responders, our police, spiritual leaders in some sense. Just keeping things in perspective. I think we put sometimes people on pedestals who may not necessarily deserve that. Certainly, music has saved my life, so there are certain people that I really look up to and admire. But yeah, the idea of true heroes in our culture, I think, needs to be discussed a little bit more. Some of them need to be recognized a little bit more.
You write in the book about making the decision to walk away and do something different after 12 years with MuchMusic. And you
Mm-hmm.
talk about coming to a realization that you were very comfortable with your diminishing status, as you put it, when you left national television to work in regional markets like Edmonton and Ottawa. And you
Mm-hmm.
reference Bruce Springsteen's Glory Days, writing, when does that desperate desire to be rich and famous stop? At what point does one get to a level of satisfaction and contentment and be grateful for what they achieved without having to further climb the ladder of success and expectations? When did that moment come for you, Bill?
I think wrestling with the idea of leaving 299 Queen West, deciding that I was in a very fortunate position, or my first job out of college, like I said, was on a national level in a major market. Where else do you go? Okay, we'll stay within Toronto, still fight to be in a major market. Oh, maybe go to the US, maybe explore that, maybe get an agent, hire a manager, or move to LA and somehow make that happen. I've probably been my own worst enemy when it comes to aspirations. I think I also had the luxury of starting off in Toronto on a national level where I thought, okay, this was great. It's been amazing. I've been all over the world, but there's something to be said about stepping away from that and not necessarily constantly always trying to be on top and to make it bigger. And once I realized that that was okay, I realized things were going to be okay. And that is embracing a smaller community, embracing a regional approach to things, and appreciating what I had done and the chances I had been given, and leaving it at that. Because I'm sure there are people in our business that are never happy. I have a friend who does commercial real estate. Years ago, he talked about how he couldn't wait to make his first million. And I said, Jeff, when that happens, you're not going to be happy until you make your first 5 million. You're not going to be happy until you make your first 10. And so I've always approached things with an attitude of just be happy for what you have achieved, be happy with what you currently have.
I feel like Jim Carrey is one of the only entertainers who consistently speaks about this idea of having to achieve the fame so you can realize it's a little bit hollow. But I don't think everybody gets there. There are some people who get laid off in this business, mid career, who never get over it. Do you have thoughts, Bill, on achieving your success early? And do you have any regrets about moving away from that national spotlight?
Oh my gosh, no regrets at all. And, a lot of sort of internal dialogue happening when those chorus cuts happened a year ago in July, and thinking, okay, do I pursue media still? Okay, I love Kingston. I don't want to move from Kingston. I love this region. I love Eastern Ontario. We're right between Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto. If I go see my Chicago Blackhawks in Toronto, I have a choice of going to Toronto, or I can go see them in Ottawa. It's not that big of a deal. But I think what was difficult for me is stepping down from it, but realizing if I was to apply for a job in Toronto or Ottawa or somewhere else, maybe a smaller market again, in television or in radio, who's to say that would last a year or two with the cuts that our business is seeing? And I applaud anyone, and I am in awe of anyone who's still working in this industry. whether it's TV or whether it's radio or even whether it's print, because they're doing what they love. And God bless them, and I hope it lasts forever. I did not want to go through this ever again. By moving to a market where I can continue broadcasting and then find out, oh, guess what? We're downsizing. So I don't have to worry about that now.
What are your thoughts on the future of local media, Bill? Do you have any?
Well, it's funny. I still talk to people and I say, well, how do you get your news then if you stop watching news? Well, I get it online. Okay. Locally, great. Who's putting those stories? We kept one or two reporters in Kingston. They're trying to sell our big broadcast building, which housed two radio stations and our big TV station. Someone is still putting local stories up online, whether it's the Kingstonist, whether it's the Whig Standard, whether it's a number of smaller online platforms. It may not be a full-time job for some, but it's still there. And local will always be there, maybe not to the size that it was 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago. But I think you'll always find people that care enough about the community to want to be involved somehow with going to press conferences, doing blogs, posting things online that will let the community know. One of the things that I really miss, about 5 years ago, we realized we couldn't afford to cover the Santa Parade with, 4 cameras, 2 hosts, and tape it and have it go into post-production with 2 different people. And I said to my boss at the time, I go, give me 1 camera that I want positioned, fixed, and let me go out with the second camera, go up and down the parade route here in Kingston on Princess Street for our Santa Parade. Something we never got a chance to do in previous years of covering our Santa Parade is to go down to Market Square where they light the giant tree. I could do that with a roaming camera and interview kids along the way and jump onto a float and interview whoever was in charge of that float. And then the next day, which is usually a Sunday, go into work and edit a 30-minute Santa highlight package. It was an amazing broadcast, and it got aired over the holidays, always on Christmas morning, of course. And it was basically me and 2 camera people and me producing and editing it. And it was a complete package. It was 30 minutes. And I realized last year, and this year it really hit me again, oh man, I'm not going to get a chance to do that this year. So any regrets I have, it's certainly not my doing. It's a regret in that I can't support the community like I used to. But that's not my doing.
Obviously, you're not the only one who was impacted. What's life like in Kingston now for the dozens of people who are now out of the business? What's been the impact? Do you feel like people are still getting that sense of community coverage that was there before?
I'll be honest, not to the same extent. The television property, CKWS-TV, is now a shortened broadcast. The news desk comes out of Peterborough. We retain 2 or 3 reporters. So it's not gone completely. It's been cut. It's been altered. We don't have a morning show anymore. One of the things that I loved about the morning show was bringing the community together. And if there was an event, if there was a charity gala happening, I could shine a spotlight on it. Local community cable is doing that. And, viewer habits change. Maybe people don't watch the community cable channels anymore, but they're doing a great job spotlighting local endeavors, local events, local personalities. Radio, we still have some radio stations in this market that are doing an amazing job highlighting community events, whether online or whether on the air. So it's still there. The magnitude of what it used to be is not there. And that's sad. And I hear it, like I said, every day if I'm grocery shopping. And one of the things, about a week after the layoffs, I was at Costco with my fiance Amanda, and this elderly couple said, "Oh my God, we miss you. We miss you. You made such a difference. What happened? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we got packages. Can you afford what's in your shopping cart?" Amanda looked mortified. I said, "Yeah, I'm okay though. I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your concern. And thanks for watching all these years. I do appreciate it." And then they walked away, and Amanda said, "Well, that was kind of rude." And I said, "No, you have to understand, when we are part of their lives in the morning, during the dinner hour, during late news, they welcome us into their family, into their house. We become part of their family. And I realized that a long time ago. And that can happen on a national level. Sure, it can happen on a regional level, on a local level. And I said to Amanda, that is the greatest feeling when sadly, you take us away. We are missed. And that means we did something right. We were a part of their morning ritual where we could entertain them, we can inform them, we can give them the weather. We can, do that at the 6 o'clock broadcast. We can do that for late news. And so I find it humbling and very beautiful that we are missed, and I still hear it. And what a fortunate position to be in.
Your celebrity is obviously enduring, Bill. Do you want to talk about the Still Alive in Kingston project?
Yeah, a local filmmaker thought my story would be interesting enough to write a script, and he showed it to me. And so I play myself in the film, and it premiered at the Kingston Canadian Film Festival. He is looking into getting further distribution. And it is about Bill Welychka moving to Kingston, missing the old days, and basically trying to figure out a way to get back to Toronto. And in the process, what I loved about the script is the thread of the film is interviewing real Kingston bands, shooting real Kingston concerts, working on a demo reel to get back to Toronto. And in the end, it's pretty obvious I end up staying in Kingston, but leaving the business, but still staying in Kingston. So we shot it over the course of a year. And what I love about it, for an indie film, it's big. Like, there's a big yacht scene. There's a big community gathering with thousands of people that's part of the film. There is a great scene with Rob Baker from the Tragically Hip, who plays himself, giving me life advice. And so I sort of make fun of myself. So it's called Still Alive in Kingston. Further distribution, I'm hoping to find some big things happening next year. But I'm not an actor, but it's not a hard stretch playing oneself. And he had an interesting way to convey different performances. He would say, Jay Mada, the film's director, okay, Bill, good scene, nice take. Give me 30% more. I know what he would mean. And I would do it. He'd say, okay, perfect, good. And the co-star, there's a love story in there, and the co-star is Anna Sudak. So it's a love story, it's comedy, it's about reinvention in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of music in there, and there's professional wrestling as well.
Okay. Going back to the book, what's new for the second edition?
A lot of stories, a lot of quotes from artists over the years that people were bringing up that I totally forgot about. And, I have a big enough archive, personal archive, and I also got them some from Bell Media now that they're digitizing their library. A lot of those old interviews were on 3/4 inch tapes or beta tapes where no one really knew how long they would last. The oxides wear off, they figured, for 3/4 inch tapes, maybe 15 years. So they are in the process, I think, of digitizing. And every now and then I'll get a still from one of the tapes being digitized of an interview that I'd totally forgotten about. And that's pretty amazing. And so there's that. There is a lot more pictures. There's a lot of comments that had happened during those book tours of the first book. And it brings it up to date with where I am now. And it also covers whatever happened from the previous editions and to right up till now. So it does talk about the cuts. It does talk about where we are as a broadcasting industry across Canada, where we're at now in 2025.
There are a lot of career highlights in the book, but are there a couple of stories that really stand out for you personally?
A lot of them will revolve around world travels and different people that you meet and different foods you will try. And what an opportunity, because you don't get that opportunity. I wouldn't have gotten those opportunities if it hadn't been for MuchMusic and much more music, for sure. But interviews that really stood out, some of them very funny, some of them life affirming, some of them little life lessons that I've learned along the way from artists. And even if you don't know who I am or my personal story, I think if you like music, you'll enjoy the book. And one of the things I do talk about is everyone has a story. You, Connie, you have a story. Everyone has a story. Mine is no more interesting or no more sad or no more weird than anyone else's life. And I was just in a fortunate position where people are curious. And again, how grateful am I for that? I mean, everyone's got an ego. We all like to hear our name mentioned. What is the sweetest word to every human being? Our own name. I think everyone does have an ego. I think it's when you start thinking that you are more important or that you deserve to have your meal comped. I think when you feel deserved, you should have a discount on something because you're on TV. I have always vehemently fought against that. And I've been embarrassed by on-air people sometimes hearing stories about, oh, I met this person and do you believe they said this or they said that? And yeah, you never want to be that guy in a story that someone is conveying about what an asshole you were, ever. And you don't have to be in broadcasting for that.
You've been on a bit of a book tour. Do you want to plug any upcoming events and let people know where they can pick up a copy?
Well, that is it for touring. What is amazing is over the summer here at Ganchev, some buyers were like, if I do buy this car, do I get a free book? And I find myself going over to Indigo at the mall and buying 3 or 4 copies of my book, which was weird because the cashier would look down at the book, look at me, look down at the book, look at me and go, is this you? Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, buying my book. Yeah. And my manager caught wind of that and said, no, Bill, no, we are going to do a bulk buy. And if anyone asks, you just reach behind you in your drawer and you give them a book. So that's what I've been doing. So for customers, they're walking away with a new copy of the book. And I joke and I go, don't think of it as a free book. Think of it as buying a very expensive book and I'm throwing in a nice new car. And they'll laugh and they'll drive off. And I'll get feedback saying, oh, I'm loving your book, which is a huge compliment.
Where can people pick it up?
Well, BillWelychka.ca is the website, Welychka, my last name. Indigo chapters, wherever books are sold. And if they don't have it in stock, they will order it in for you. And it's called A Happy Has-Been. Bill Welychka. Make sure you get the second edition, though.
Do you have a thought you want to close on?
Just an enormous amount of gratitude for you and keep doing what you're doing. I love the idea of what you're doing and, the whole idea of broadcast dialogue, just keeping this industry together and those that are still there. God bless you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for listening to Broadcast Dialogue. For more information about the podcast or to receive exclusive access to our weekly briefing about the Canadian media industry, visit us at broadcastdialogue.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, connect with us on LinkedIn, and follow us on Twitter and SoundCloud.
Want the top broadcast and media headlines delivered straight to your inbox? Broadcast Dialogue's weekly briefing has the news, people moves, and trends that matter. Free every Thursday. Subscribe now at broadcastdialogue.com.